Hi, I'm Sami Laine. I'm the Senior Solutions Architect for Okta in the public sector. And I came to Okta through a longer journey, mostly in the security side. So I've always been on the vendor land and not a customer. This is interesting because for me, this was a great opportunity to go where the puck is going to be. Meaning, in this case, security was changing rapidly. All my friends thought that I'm moving to identity, but it turns out that the identity was ahead of the curve here and morphed into the modern security, because security has changed where the identity is the new perimeter. So as such, it is a great place for us to help all of our clients, especially in the public sector, to transform their elements of security into the modern world and enhance the customer journey that they're going to try to provide both for their constituents as well as to their employees and workforce. Fraud and the impact of identity is huge. Surveys show that in 2020, total fraud in the United States alone amounted to $56 billion. And in the 3 years of pandemic, about $45 billion was lost in just fraudulent unemployment payments alone. So we have a huge opportunity here to make an impact. Identity, meaning the authentication and authorization, is at the heart of these experiences that we're giving to the customer. And as part of that, we are at the catbird seat to be able to make a huge impact on these things. If you think about it, if you're the digital front door, you have the opportunity to inspect and understand who is trying to gain access and make sure that you're giving access to the right people at the right time, to the right resources in the right context. So what are the actions that government leaders are taking to tackle fraud, and what are the obstacles that they're facing? The actions that they are taking are drastic, given what happened as soon as the pandemic hit and all of the different fraud vectors really exploded. Unemployment fraud especially skyrocketed. So the key actions that everyone needs to take is to work through and understand what the actual vector of fraud is, meaning how are the bad actors, the threat actors here, gaining the outcome that they want. You need to really think about the impact and understanding how this is happening, because until you understand how it's happening and what the vector is, you won't be able to mitigate it. And usually the mitigation starts by then understanding the nature of the fraud. Is it synthetic identity fraud, where they're creating fake identities you need to be able to identify as not real? Is it identity theft, where real people's identities are being taken over and abused? Or is it account and credential takeover, where real accounts are being taken over from the legitimate users? And depending on what vector it is, then you have different tools in your tool bag to address that. Things like bot detection, device reputation, that can find these clusters of bad actors that are coming through different botnets to do this abuse, as well as then tooling for actual identity verification and detection, discerning whether, for example, an identity claim can be real or not. And then tooling for protecting true accounts. That's where strong authentication comes in, and you can then deploy better, stronger authentication to all of your customers, all of your residents and citizens, as well as your workforce. Things that are phishing resistant, so that the actual end user, whether it's a resident, citizen, or the employee, is put responsible for their own security. If you can remove that vector altogether, then everybody wins. Better user experience, much improved security. So these are the typical steps that we see everyone taking, whether it's private sector, federal government, state and local government, or even education services. Today, an identity solution can be deployed for both workforce and for customer or citizen or resident identity. The tooling will need to be slightly different, because in the case of workforce, you're actually often controlling the endpoint. You're understanding the environment in a different way. Whereas with the citizen identity, resident identity, customer identity, you do not. People are coming from unmanaged devices over unknown networks, and you need to be able to authenticate them strongly, securely, and understand when threats are present. So what's happening is, behind the scenes, a lot of the same tooling is being used today. If you look at Okta, for example, we have very similar technologies behind both, where we're doing things like bot detection, and advanced protection against DDoS attacks, etc., regardless of which one of these tools you have. And then the difference is really in the implementation details, how, for example, a user is brought on, how the onboarding is handled. Do you need to do things like progressive profiling? Do you need to create users where they don't have a password? Say, for example, the resident identity, you can easily envision a situation where it's completely passwordless experience, and you're collecting information as the end user goes along on their journey with the agency or the entity that's serving them. So behind the scenes, things are often interconnected, although in the front door, they may look completely different. I think that it's all about that buzzword of the day, digital transformation. All of your employees escaped the perimeter during COVID. Most of your workloads are in the process of escaping the perimeter. And the traditional tooling was often tied in the data center and deeply connected into the apps themselves. With modern identity, you really are embracing the cloud in the way where your identity becomes an identity cloud. It becomes that enabling technology where authentication and authorization is the new perimeter. And you can use tooling like Okta to create that universal directory that connects those disparate silos behind the scenes and makes it possible for you for the first time to have a comprehensive policy that allows you to create the security parameters across all of these applications and make sure that your end users have a simple, unified experience. One login, one credential, access to all the relevant tooling, all the relevant applications. And this is absolutely transformational. It also enables you to basically start consuming technology at much more rapid rate. If you need to build a new app, or you need to consume a new SaaS application, if you have this modern identity layer, it's as easy as plugging those in. There's no plumbing needed, no engineering, no software projects that you need to spin up. It's literally plug and play. So we often see that identity becomes this transformative technology that makes it possible for you to move much faster with fewer resources. If we start with the basics, what you need to do for fraud reduction is start with things like bot detection and CAPTCHAs and so forth. In the Okta ecosystem, we call one of the core elements our threat insight, where we detect password spraying, credential stuffing, brute force attacks, all before authentication. This is kind of like the key element of our ecosystem. And all of this is based on ML models that are created on actual fraud and threat actor patterns that we see across our global infrastructure. Then, in top of that, you need to then layer things like advanced bot detection, device reputations, etc., and identity proofing and verification as needed for the application. And for this, we rely on our broad partner ecosystem, where you can plug in all of these leading tools from different vendors that plug right into that authentication and authorization pipeline. So that way you don't have to build the glue, it's already pre-integrated. And all of these tools bring their own AI and ML models to the game. So in this sense, we don't have to wait for the glorious future that's going to come one day. We've already been there for a couple of years. And behind the scenes, these tools are just accelerating the process. One of the best case studies here that I can think of is state of Illinois. They had 13 million residents and 63 agencies and boards and commissions that were all basically in multiple, like dozens of different silos. Identities were spread everywhere. The legacy infrastructure was not really geared towards a modernization. So they took on a project where they wanted to create a zero trust framework around all of this. And with the pandemic hitting just in the middle of the start of this project, it massively accelerated this. And they moved to getting basically 1.1 million iLogin accounts, Illinois login accounts created during the start of the pandemic, all powered by Okta behind the scenes. So I think that's a great example of how using this modernization framework allows you to consume this technology much faster than ever before. And it doesn't require these massive multi-year projects where all of the tools are custom built. This was leveraging what we have. So what are the steps that the public sector should take to prepare for customer, citizen, resident identity? I think that the first step is really inventorying their applications and understanding where the interaction points are. You can start by modernizing a single application and its identity stack, but often there's a great opportunity to create broader initiatives. There's a lot of all-of-state initiatives underway where we can basically create a framework where the resident of a certain state could use a single identity to access all of the relevant state services. And you can use this kind of a cloud identity layer to really enable this transformation. It's then a matter of simply creating this infrastructure, leveraging Okta, and then based on that, you start integrating individual agencies and applications into this framework. Sometimes it feels like you're boiling the ocean if you take this approach, but it doesn't have to be that way. You can really start from the basics and say, let's pick a key application and build a framework that's extensible, and then pile on top of that. So all of state initiatives aside, you can always start from a single critical application and focus on the resident experience. If you focus on a great experience for the resident, that's a great starting point. We have over 1,000 engineers in our organization focused on delivering these services. And a big part of our approach is making sure that we understand the modern threat vectors, we understand the modern threat actors, and constantly evolve and improve our ecosystem behind the scenes so that both our infrastructure and the services that we deliver keep up pace. This includes constantly updating and modernizing and self-learning the models that are behind tools like Okta Threat Insights, and making sure that we have the best partner ecosystem for the specific threat mitigation strategies that are needed for example, device reputation, for example, bot detection, on a global scale, that can be then leveraged by our clients by simply enabling that integration instead of having to implement them from scratch themselves. If you're thinking about building something, one of the best ways is to, first of all, look at your engineers. Every agency has software engineers that are building applications, but often they've been building legacy applications and maintaining them, and they may not be up to speed on the most modern design patterns and tools that are used for securing application access. So Okta provides a lot of education services and webinars and in-person training that enables these teams to learn these new design patterns, how to leverage OAuth 2, how to leverage these modern protocols and design patterns, how to leverage the modern identity stack to solve the problems that they face. So essentially enabling your key employees, especially on the engineering side and delivery side, to understand this stack is one great part. Another part is the policies. How do you actually create then the right security policies in the framework? We have education services that are available for your teams that allows you to understand the configuration options, how to set up the threat insights, how to set up the actual policies, how to implement the authenticators in a way that allows you to achieve zero trust posture for all of your applications and an application stack. So we do provide great set of services that allows you to do that. And you can also start yourself. Lots of resources available at no cost. So you can come to our website and look at the different options available to you today. The expectation has been raised. Every user now expects the same level of security that they would get from their financial institutions and banking, vendors. They also expect the same level of convenience they get from shopping at Amazon. And at the same time, they expect that their privacy is respected and no extra information is collected where it's not needed. So having a robust platform that allows you to manage things like the authentication, the security policies, and also the consent of the user on the data that's being collected is critical. Think about all the regulation that is now facing us from the perspective of privacy. If you have a resident, for example, that is out of state but is using your services, they may be a resident of a state where the privacy regulations are tighter than in the state that you're in. So what if there's a information request? Would you be able to tell this user what information do you have of them? So leveraging these modern tools, essentially is what I'm saying, allows you then to basically future-proof yourself and make it possible for you to respond to these kind of requests that seem to be coming out of the left field.